Welcome back, everybody. It's the Fantasy Pros Dynasty Fantasy Football Podcast. I'm your host, Scott Bogman. Follow me on the Twitter at Bogman Sports. I'm joined, as always, by Pat Fitzmaurice at Fitz_FF. Fitzy, doing a 3-round rookie mock. Are you ready? It's going to look a little different than the past ones that we've done now that we have landing spots.
Yes, very excited. We get some variance here and, get to work in the landing spots and see how that influences things. So, yes, let's do it, man. I'm excited.
To join us from High Floor Fantasy Football, it is Jay Arsh. Follow him on the Twitter at Jay Arsh, ARSHT. And Jay, welcome and thank you for coming on. And how excited are you about the rookie class? And, we finally got landing spots after all this lead up.
Yeah, thank you guys for having me. I appreciate it. It's great to be here. And yeah, man, I mean, it's the culmination of a lot of predictions, a lot of, guessing and I like the landing spots. I mean, I think I like the landing spots for a few different positions more than others. And I think that's, maybe something we can all agree on, but I'm excited. I'm excited to get it started.
I feel like Bijan died for the rest of the running back sins here. Bijan ends up in the best spot that we could possibly imagine for a first round running back. And then the rest are kind of, they're not terrible spots. I mean, every place is a committee anymore, but I like the wide receivers and the tight ends had some really good landing spots and QB needy teams for the QBs. So the running back's not so great, but everything else was pretty solid. So it's going to be 3 rounds. Now, Fitz, I decided that the guest goes first. You go second. I go third as usual. The next one I'll go first because I know you want to see me take Bijan at some point here. And I will. I promise that I'll take Bijan pretty quickly here. But before we dive in and start the draft here, I just got to tell you guys about the 2023 Dynasty Draft Kit at fantasypros.com/dynasty. Get ahead of the competition with it. Expert rankings, trade advice, combine coverage, Dynasty rookie profiles, position primers, and more. You have everything you need to dominate your draft for free. FREE, upgrading to premium unlocks even more draft strategy content in our draft kit, along with access to our Discord, which Fitz and I are on most Fridays at 5 Eastern. Please check that out, which allows you to directly interact with our analysts. Unlock the secrets to crushing your Dynasty draft with our Dynasty Draft Kit today at fantasypros.com/dynasty. All right. So let's just get into it here, guys. And we'll talk about these guys as we move on here. But Jay, you are up in a Superflex. I guess the question is it still Bijan in Superflex or is it a quarterback?
Well, yeah, thanks for giving me the first pick. I won't have to get too spicy off the bat. There are 2 players that I would consider here. It would be Bijan Robinson, of course, and Anthony Richardson. I do think is in consideration, but like I said, not going to get too spicy at the first pick. I'm going to take Bijan Robinson, and like you alluded to, he did land in a good spot in my opinion. Atlanta does like to run the rock. Goes in the top 10, which we love. The draft capital for him as a running back going there, and interested to see what they're going to do. I'm surprised that, Atlanta didn't make any improvements at the quarterback position, but I do think it's a good spot for Bijan, and I think that he still should be the 101, although Anthony Richardson got closer than he was prior to the draft, in my opinion.
I think so, too. Fitz is going to be up here for the second pick, but it's still Bijan 1.1, no matter the format, right, Fitz?
It is, and but can I push back at something you said, Boggs? Like you said, sure, Atlanta is maybe the optimal landing spot for Bijan Robinson. Like, I'm not so sure about that. I mean, I like it. We know that Arthur Smith is fully committed to the running game, almost to a fault, and but like the one thing that kind of concerns me with Desmond Ridder at quarterback, Bijan is going to be facing loaded boxes, like typical, 8-man fronts, I think, because who's going to be more concerned about Desmond Ridder beating a defense over the top than they are about Bijan, running all over the place against you. So that part of it concerns me a little, and I suppose, though, the counter argument is that at least Ridder is mobile, and we know that mobile quarterbacks generally help with running back efficiency. I guess I can't be too depressed about Bijan facing 8-man fronts when Jonathan Taylor with Anthony Richardson. He's going to face a lot of 8-man fronts too, but man, with Anthony Richardson's mobility and freezing those linebackers for a split second, I wouldn't be surprised if Jonathan Taylor just goes berserk this year. So
Yeah, I understand that, and it's for me, it's a great landing spot because the running backs had the second most carries in the NFL last year out of Atlanta. Yeah. So, but you never know about the Arthur Smith we hate him for fantasy because Kyle Pitts has done nothing. Drake London has done nothing. So you better not ruin Bijan or you'll have an uprising.
Yeah.
Arthur Smith here. Right. That's really the thing. And also remember what Frank Reich did to Jonathan Taylor his rookie year. We saw way too much Nyheim Hines. So there's the possibility we see way too much Tyler Algier with Bijan Robinson in the backfield as well. So yeah, we can poke holes in all of them. But for the most part, you like the high volume.
Yeah, real quick, Boggs. Let me ask our guest, since Jay is an Eagles fan. Like Jay, were you kind of wishing that Bijan might land in Philly? I mean, I know you don't have much to complain about as far as how the draft shook out for Eagles fans, but was some small part of you wishing that Bijan was going to be wearing green?
Oh, sure. I mean, I tried to not let myself get there throughout the whole draft process because, the discourse was, it would make sense. 10 seemed like almost the latest that he would go, essentially, to many. At the same time, the Howie Roseman narratives of not taking the running backs that early. So I tried to not let myself get there. As the draft got closer and closer, it started to seem more likely. And yeah, of course. I mean, I was dreaming about Bijan and Green, and I still think it would have been a great spot. But, we got the consolation prize of getting DeAndre Swift on day 3. So, yeah.
Yeah. Poor Eagles only landed with DeAndre Swift and Jalen Carter. So, yeah, you guys are doing okay. Fitzy, you're up for pick 2. Bijan is gone. Who are you taking?
All right, Jay hinted at it. Anthony Richardson at 102. And Boggs, I know he's been your top quarterback all along in the process. I've been a little slower to come around to it, and it was going to maybe depend on the landing spot for me. But the more I've heard about Richardson, and the more like Matt Waldman sort of sold us on him, and just, drilling home the point that where maybe Anthony Richardson doesn't have a lot of game experience, like he is not, an unsophisticated player when it comes to processing, pocket management, whiteboard expertise, and all that stuff. So, really excited about him. And just because he could be another quarterback who has the sort of running impact that we've seen from Jalen Hurts, Josh Allen, and then, just on top of it, Fields, and a great arm to boot. And yes, he's going to need refinement, but, he's capable of getting there. And man, if the passing clicks for him the way it did for Jalen Hurts last year, look out, man. Sky is the limit. So yeah, with the upside, you have to go with Anthony Richardson at 102, I believe.
Yeah, Jay, for me, I've been saying, all the quarterbacks have a but in this draft. It's, Bryce Young, but his size. CJ, but his, the talent that he had around him was very good. Vanilla offense, and that score, that cognition test was real bad. With Richardson, it's but inexperience. But I mean, most athletic quarterback ever in the history of the draft, according to RAS score. So, I'll take the upside. I think that's the right play, taking Richardson at 2. Is that what you would do as well?
Sure. Yeah, I definitely agree taking Richardson at 2. And like you said, I mean, there are, reasons to be skeptical of all 3 of these quarterbacks. But, we like to talk about it in fantasy with the rushing upside and the rushing floor, that it ultimately gives you. And I actually think Anthony Richardson has the best surrounding cast in his offense as well. He has Michael Pittman, Jonathan Taylor, Alec Pierce, Shane Steichen, who, just came from coaching Jalen Hurts as well. So a good plan to develop him, hopefully, and some weapons around him to start.
For pick number 3, I'm up. I'm going to take Bryce Young, the quarterback from Carolina. I would consider non-quarterback options here. If you're a team that has quarterbacks and you're desperate for a wide receiver or running back, Addison or Gibbs would be okay. But the quarterbacks, especially the guys that are going to start immediately, are worth more for you. So it might be worth your time to just take the quarterback, even if you don't need them, and end up trading them for a better asset than what you would have gotten in the draft, or more assets if you're rebuilding, something like that. So for me, I'm going to go ahead and snap up Bryce Young, quarterback for Carolina. He should be there for a long time to come. I know the size is a question. CJ Stroud has questions as well. Richardson has questions as well, but I'm just going to take one of the better QB prospects I've seen despite his size coming out. So I'm happy to get Young at 3. Is this a snap decision for you, Fitz, here at 3? Would you also take Young or Stroud or a quarterback? or would you maybe go to a position player instead?
I just sort of flip-flop on this, and I had Stroud ahead of Young just because I do have concerns about the size, but I just moved Young back ahead. Part of it is just that I think he's in a better landing spot. I think he's got more to work with in Carolina, and just the fact that his floor is so high, and I think he's going to maximize his potential pretty quickly. Like the rookie year might be a little rough, but I think by year 2, he's going to be a pretty fully formed NFL player and close to his best, I think, by year 2.
Jay, do you agree? Keep quarterbacks in this spot, or is there a position player you like here?
Yeah, there are a few position players I like, but in a vacuum, I mean, I do think you have to go quarterback still, and it's tough for me because really, I don't love C.J. Stroud's landing spot where he ended up in Houston. I don't love that they traded their 24 first-round pick as well to go up and get Will Anderson. Takes away some ammo for them to add some talent around C.J. Stroud, and Houston hasn't been the most functional organization these past couple of years either, and I don't love the weapons around C.J. Stroud. I don't think his ceiling is necessarily that high in fantasy, but we're wrong about this stuff sometimes. I mean, some people weren't as high on Justin Herbert when he came in for some different reasons as well. And I think that, like you said, the quarterback's going to hold value a little bit longer in Dynasty. I mean, a lot longer in most situations. And so don't love the landing spot. Don't love the player as much as Bryce Young or Anthony Richardson, but I do still think quarterback is the pick at 104.
All right. So CJ Stroud going 4th overall to Jay. This is where the draft kind of starts for me. Fitz, you're at 5. I think the top 4 are kind of cut and paste. What are you doing at number 5?
Did Jay officially go with Stroud at 104? That's official.
Yeah,
okay.
yeah, I'm taking Stroud
All
at 4.
Right. So now I'm going to go with Jahmyr Gibbs. And he wasn't this high for me pre-draft, but, we saw the enthusiasm with the Lions taking him much earlier than we expected him to come off the board. I mean, we thought he was going to be kind of a borderline first rounder. The Lions taking him and then immediately trading DeAndre Swift. Maybe not immediately, but a couple days later. That really gives Gibbs a nice runway here to instant fantasy relevance. Yes, David Montgomery is going to play a lot on early downs, but I don't think we want Gibbs at 199 pounds to necessarily be a workhorse. I think we're looking for something more like early career Alvin Kamara usage, where he gets, around 100 targets and maybe fewer than 200 carries. So he's not getting worked to death like as a smaller back, but he's getting those high value opportunities as a pass catcher. And, that's what you want to do with Gibbs. Get him in space. I like the landing spot. I think Ben Johnson is going to know what to do with them. I think we know that Jared Goff, has no compunction about dumping off to his running backs. So I really do like the spot for Gibbs. The track record for sub 200-pound running backs is not great, but, you've got a 199-pound guy. So that almost seems like kind of an arbitrary
give him a couple biscuits.
Cutoff point.
He'll
Exactly. Do that, put on a few pounds, and we're fine, right? Statistically.
That's right. You give him some sandwiches. He's going to be okay. Jay, this is kind of where it opens up. Is Gibbs your guy too? I think he's the RB2 on most boards. I know some people like Charbonnet, some people like I'm an Addison guy here. But what do you think about this pick of Gibbs here?
For me, it's between Gibbs and Jaxon Smith-Njigba, personally. But I do think that, the investment that the Lions made in acquiring Jahmyr Gibbs and how excited they were when they made the pick and how they've been afterwards. I mean, they could have picked Bijan at 6 and they chose to, trade back and pick Jahmyr Gibbs, which is a pretty heavy endorsement of how they feel about the player. We all have, PTSD of how, DeAndre Swift was used in Detroit at the same time. He was a second-round pick. Jahmyr Gibbs was a top 15 pick. So I do think he's going to be an instant producer there. And, you alluded to it early in the show, too. I mean, most of these backfields are split. Nobody's getting 100% of the workload. So if he's getting those high-value touches, I think that, he's a good investment there.
Hey, you want, like Fitz said, you want 10 to 15, and you hope he hits the home run. So, or maybe gets in the end zone some other way. I mean, and he's going to catch some passes too, because he can really run routes and catch the ball. So a lot of fun to watch. I'm going to go with Jordan Addison at pick number 6. It seems to me that wide receiver 1 is split between JSN and Addison. I don't really have like a crazy strong preference in terms of the talent between these two. But for me, I'll take the Minnesota offense and what Kevin O'Connell has done with, guys like Kupp and Robert Woods, who were both, obviously super talented, but he kind of unlocked the talent. We've seen Justin Jefferson be amazing and the number one pick in Dynasty in most cases. TJ Hawkinson has eaten up coverage over the middle, so I'm excited to see what they do. A team that is likely to cut Dalvin Cook. It has not happened yet, but I think we're going to see more passing out of this team than we ever have before, and Addison's going to be a big part of it. So I'm going to go ahead and snap him up at pick number 6. I'm guessing I know who Jay is going to take at number 7. Who's that going to be, Jay?
I am going to take Jaxon Smith-Njigba, the wide receiver from Ohio State, going to Seattle. But I don't hate the Jordan Addison pick going ahead of him either. I think it is a debate that, is worth having. I don't dislike Jaxon Smith-Njigba's landing spot as much as it feels like some people do. I think Seattle's, a good organization. He still went off the board as the first receiver in the draft at pick 20. And, Tyler Lockett's going on, either he is 31 or he's going on 31 by the end of the season. I think this is, he's going to be the predecessor to Tyler Lockett. And he also fits, I've been kind of thinking about it like a puzzle piece, it's like he fits perfectly into that offense. He doesn't really play the same position as DK Metcalf and not as much. Tyler Lockett goes in the slot sometimes, but JSN's going to fit into his own role there. I think he's going to, be playing immediately. And we're talking about Dynasty. I think for the future, he's in a good spot to succeed.
That 1-2 punch of Metcalf and JSN is going to be a lot of fun to watch in Seattle for years to come here. Fitz, is this kind of the next tier for you? Is it Gibbs and then these two wideouts, or is it does it expand beyond that?
I think it is. I've got all these first round wide receivers sort of bunched together, and it's interesting because I think Addison definitely had the most favorable landing spot of the first round wide receivers. And that maybe does narrow the gap between, I'd sort of a pre-draft gap between JSN and the rest of the guys. And I think that gap narrowed a little bit, at least the gap between JSN and Addison did. I think it's a close call. I mean, I probably would have taken JSN over Addison, but I can't really blame you for going Addison. And now, here at 108, I find it sort of a difficult decision between Zay Flowers and Quentin Johnston, the other two first round guys. And I'm going to go with Flowers. I think I like his landing spot a little more because I think he's got a quicker path to instant relevance. It might take an injury in year one for Quentin Johnston to be relevant. I do think he can push his way past Josh Palmer on the depth chart, but he's not getting past Keenan Allen and Mike Williams. Although I realize with Keenan Allen's contract, he might be spending his last year with the Chargers. We don't know what the future holds for Mike Williams, how much longer he's going to be with the team. So, if Quentin Johnston is what they hope he's going to be, he might be the top dog there before long, but not in year one. And, Flowers, we know the Ravens have been pretty run heavy, although maybe they get a little less run heavy with Todd Monken as the new offensive coordinator, but I would expect that they're still going to be run heavier than average. Still, though, why couldn't Zay Flowers at least be as good as Marquise Brown was with the Ravens? And Boggs, I think Marquise Brown is maybe a little bit overrated, and we've kind of debated that on this show before. So I think Flowers could be like a Marquise Brown plus. I think he's going to be a better player than Hollywood. And so I'm kind of excited about him here. And, Odell's there, Bateman's there, but, what are the odds of both of those guys being healthy all year? Probably not great. So,
yeah, it's almost like, are the Ravens a curse for wide receivers?
Oh, man.
It feels like recently it's been pretty bad in terms of the guys landing there. We got excited about Devin Duvernay because the Ravens were excited. You talk about a draft room that was going crazy. Harbaugh was going nuts when they got him, and then they spent the first round pick on Bateman and it hasn't worked, and now they signed OBJ and they have Zay. I think the good news for Zay, though, and the Ravens offense for wide receivers is Todd Monken coming in, the offensive coordinator at Georgia coming in. This offense should change. They should throw the ball more, and Zay would obviously be a beneficiary to that. So difficult pick here, probably the hardest that we've had so far to go ahead and end up snagging Zay, but that's gonna put that puts me back on the clock here. All right, I'm gonna zig when we zag. First, let me hit you up, Jay, here. What do you think about this pick? Would Zay have been your guy here, or would you have gone somewhere different?
Zay would have been my guy as well at 8. I think you guys brought up, a lot of good points about it. And, the change in philosophy might have, this might be evidence of that. They went back to wide receiver in the first round, which is something I feel like we wanted the Ravens to do over time. And now they've continued to do it. They took Rashad Bateman a few years back, like you mentioned, Zay Flowers. They invested in Odell Beckham. So I do think that the philosophy is changing in Baltimore a little bit. Like Fitz said, I think that, they might be a little bit more run heavy than others, but less run heavy than they have been in the past. So yeah, I like the Zay Flowers pick there.
I'm going to go ahead and zig with pick number 9 in the first round. I'm going to take Dalton Kincaid, the tight end out of Utah, going to Buffalo. And I don't feel like I was as enthusiastic about Kincaid. Definitely not as our buddy Debro. I mean, Debro was, comping him to Travis Kelce and stuff like that. He's very, very excited about Dalton Kincaid. I'm not that excited, but I love this landing spot in Buffalo because they didn't add another wide receiver. And this is a pass first offense that, Josh Allen is going to find a safety blanket in Dalton Kincaid. And I'm very excited for him. It's a tough transition for tight ends to come in the NFL and produce right away. So we do have that. I know this is a little bit of a riskier pick, but you see what a good tight end can do for your team. It can be the difference maker week in and week out. And I think Kincaid, especially in this offense, has a chance to be one of the better tight ends in the league eventually. So, Fitz, is this too early for Kincaid, or is this kind of in the range of where he needs to go?
I mean, I think it's okay. The chalk is probably Quentin Johnston, but I have no issues with Kincaid there because I think he's 110 overall on my Superflex board. So this is just a one spot bump for him.
Gotcha. And Jay, I leave you with the chance to take Quentin Johnston at 10. Are you getting a deal here, or would you consider Kincaid as well?
I am going to take Quentin Johnston here. I do agree that Kincaid's in this range. I think, good evidence of that, too, is that we all kind of were mocking Buffalo to take a wide receiver, whether it was in the first round or, later throughout the draft. Instead of doing that, they still added a pass catcher and Dalton Kincaid, who some are saying is just a, big slot receiver, essentially. So I think he's going to get some good volume early on in the Buffalo offense. But I am going to take Quentin Johnston here at the 110. I was a little skeptical of him, as a dynasty manager. I think coming in as a lot of us were, we haven't had great luck with some of the TCU guys in the past. I think he's kind of, right below as a prospect, some of the, the top 3 that are already off the board. But I actually liked the Chargers landing spot for him long term. Like, Pat had referenced earlier, it might not be immediate for him with Keenan Allen and Mike Williams there, but, getting attached to a guy like Justin Herbert, who is going to be there long term, and then getting the first round draft capital, I think was good for him. I mean, he wasn't invited to the draft for some reason. The NFL didn't, invite him to the draft thinking he might not go in the first. And he got a pretty good spot there going right at 21. So I'm going to take Quentin Johnston at 110.
All right. So pick number 11 here, Fitzy. Another big turn. This is kind of, we have the drop off of the top 10 prospects. I think that's kind of a tier of its own. So now we go to 11. Who's number 11 for you, Fitz?
It's Will Levis. And,
okay.
It's like, this is not a fun pick to make. And it feels like Will Levis has become something of a dynasty pariah already at this, before his career has even started. But I feel like we heard the same things about Josh Allen coming out. And we forget that people made fun of how inaccurate Josh Allen was, and people would post highlights of Josh Allen missing wide open receivers in practices and, at Wyoming. But we know Levis does have the Josh Allen starter kit. And even though he did fall out of the first round, the Titans traded up to get him in the second. And so he is clearly their succession plan for Ryan Tannehill here. And since it appears the Titans aren't really going anywhere this year, that succession plan might be put into place sooner rather than later. So, I mean, the early Will Levis experience is probably not going to be real pretty, but big arm, fast, even if it's kind of straight line speed and not real elusiveness like Josh Allen or Jalen Hurts. But just the raw tools are impressive. And, he is Tennessee's quarterback of the future. So that's where we're going at 111. I mean, quarterbacks are the economy of Superflex leagues, and you got to pay heed to that, I think.
And that's really what it is. Even if he's not the starter to begin the season, I still think Will Levis is worth more than a lot of prospects here, Jay, because he's a quarterback. The position is limited. You can't get splits at the QB position. So there's 32. And even when there's 32, there's really like 27 or 26 because there's a bunch of spots that aren't settled. So I think Will Levis is a pretty solid pick here.
I totally agree, and I could feel the tension in the room. None of us wanted to take him there. Like Pat said, he's not a favorite of the Dynasty community right now, but he belongs there. We're talking about taking a quarterback who went early second round, who they traded up for, could be the quarterback of the future, over some of these running backs that are going to be in timeshares probably initially, and they play a position of just less value in Superflex. So if Will Levis does hit, he's going to be an absolute steal when people are getting him in the back end of the first round.
I'm going to be up next, but before I pick, by now, most of you have heard probably of Reality Sports Online, the powerful fantasy sports platform where owners get to build and manage their fantasy teams like an NFL general manager. But the question is, have you tried it? It's time to see what all the buzz in the Dynasty community is about. Free agency, multi-year contracts, a rookie draft, multi-team trades, franchise tags, contract extensions, first-round rookie options, automated contract and salary cap functionality, and much, much more. Think it sounds complicated? It is not. The best thing about Reality Sports Online Fantasy Front Office is that it doesn't take any more time than a standard league. It just requires more strategy. Think you're among the fantasy elite? Well, this is a platform to test your mettle. Still not sure? You can test your general manager skills for free, FREE, in a mock. If you like what you see, use the promo code FantasyPros to receive a 10% discount on your team or league today. Fantasy just got real at realitysportsonline.com. All right, last pick in the first for me. I'm going to take Zach Charbonnet, the running back, going to the Seattle Seahawks. Initially, very upset about this pick because I'm a huge Ken Walker fan. Love Ken Walker. Don't like anyone eating into him. Also, Zach Charbonnet is bigger physically than Ken Walker, so I'm assuming he's probably going to get goal line work as well. But we know Pete Carroll. We saw many years of Lynch and Carson working in Seattle. I've calmed down a little bit since the draft happened, and I have kind of resigned myself to liking Zach Charbonnet. I have him just over Levis in my ranking, so I was more than fine that Pat was forced to pull the trigger on Will Levis. I didn't want to do it. He left me Zach Charbonnet, so I feel better about this. If you need a running back, he's still going to be used early and often, and if anything happens to Walker, he's going to have a big old lion share. So I'm happy with this pick here. Jay, your thoughts on Charbonnet going to Seattle?
Yeah, wow, what a bummer on day 2 of the draft when that pick was made for the Dynasty community out there. It's been really interesting following the Charbonnet trajectory because before the draft, he was going as early as 107 to 109 in some of these Superflex drafts or mocks at that time. And he's still sliding into the first round, like you said. He's a great safety blanket if anything does happen to Kenneth Walker. And I also think Seattle, we don't like that they invested in him there, but they did. They invested in him early in the second round, and I think they're going to find some sort of way to use them both, which might not be great for some of the receivers that we're excited about there, I guess. But, Seattle does what they do, and they invested in another second-round running back. So I think Charbonnet is a good pick there as well.
Is Charbonnet the pick for you after Will Levis fits?
No. I'll tell you when that player is eventually picked. Okay. But, we hate the landing spot, no question about it. But I get why Seattle did it. Like in recent years, they have seen Chris.
It's a good pick for Seattle.
Yeah, they've seen Chris Carson and Rashad Penny go down, and a team that values the running game as much as the Seahawks do. You don't want to be left in the lurch without your lead running back and be put in a position where you've got Travis Homer and DJ Dallas types trying to carry your running game. So I understand the investment at the position. We just don't have to like it as dynasty managers.
And we don't. But let's move on. The first pick in the second round, Jay, who are you taking to pair with Bijan as this number 1 pick here?
Yeah, I'm going to take a running back that I think was in contention for that 112 pick with Charbonnet as well, and it's Kendre Miller for me. I think that, he went off the board as the 4th running back. He was the second one on day 2 taken by the New Orleans Saints. And, we're all expecting Alvin Kamara to, face a suspension for, his off-the-field issues this past year. He's also going to be 28 before the season starts. So, it's a future plan for New Orleans, whether he's suspended or not and how long he's suspended. And I liked Kendre Miller. I mean, we didn't get to see too much of him throughout the draft process because he was dealing with some injuries. But, getting that sort of draft capital in the third round, going to a team where he could have immediate opportunity as well as, future opportunity based on the age of the guys ahead of him. I like Kendre Miller there. He's actually my third running back in my rankings, essentially. But, him and Zach Charbonnet is a tough decision for me, but it is between those two. So I'm happy to get Kendre Miller at the 201.
I'm not nearly as excited about Kendre Miller as you are, but I can tell you what makes you appreciate Kendre Miller is watching Max Duggan play quarterback. Max Duggan was rough in some of that film that you watch. Obviously, he had big playmakers around him, but Kendre Miller really kick that offense off. And I just hate that Jamal Williams is there. I hate that the Kamara is still there. I hate that Williams and Miller kind of have the same skill set, which really aggravates me about Kendre Miller. I did not understand this draft pick by the Saints. I was actually more bummed out about this than Charbonnet going to Seattle, to be honest, because I do like Kendre Miller. I just don't like this landing spot as much. But Fitz, your thoughts on Miller, and then you're up so we can see who this mystery player is.
Miller was my RB5, just behind Charbonnet and 2 behind the guy I'm going to pick here, Devon Achane. And, Boggs, I have been a Devon Achane enthusiast throughout the pre-draft process. Just love the guy at Texas A&M. And yes, he is, 5'8", 188, or 5'9", 188, and known for his speed. 4.32, and this dude is world-class speed. I mean, he can take it to the house at any point, but he's not just a little scat back. I mean, he averaged over 23 touches a game for Texas A&M last year and almost 20 carries a game. And he ran between the tackles, and he's got really good contact balance for a smaller back. Kind of reminds me of Warrick Dunn. And I was enthusiastic, Boggs, to hear Evan Silva of Establish the Run on with our guy Thor Nystrom, the resident Fantasy Pros, college football and NFL draft analyst, dishing out AFC draft grades. And Evan was talking about how he is going to be, overweight on Devon Achane in drafts this year. And a guy as smart as Evan giving that sort of endorsement to Achane, definitely warmed the cockles of my heart. And I love the landing spot, a bunch of depressing running back landing spots, but Achane was a good one. Goes to a guy, Mike McDaniel, who really values speed and is going to find ways. I mean, we saw Raheem Mostert flourish when McDaniel was the running game coordinator in San Francisco. Another good year for Mostert last year, but Mostert's 31 and gets hurt a lot. Achane is younger and has infinitely more juice than Mostert. So, I think he's just going to fit this scheme perfectly. Can't wait to see how McDaniel deploys him. And, I'm excited to get him here early in the second.
Jay, to me, Achane moved up so much in the process because I was afraid of an undersized running back. All the speed, right? But this is a guy you give 10 touches. If he goes to the wrong spot, he ends up being Tutu Atwell, right? He's like a weapon that you never use. You're just never in position to give the rock to. But in Miami, where they split these guys up anyway, and they're forming a track team that could compete with Olympians, with Waddle and Hill and Achane now, I think it's okay, well, either early in the game, you give the ball to Devon Achane, and if he breaks one off, now you got safeties and linebackers creeping in a little bit. You're going over the top of Tyreek Hill. But if Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle are working early, now the linebackers and safeties move back a step or two. Now you have a little more room to work with Devon Achane. I love this pick for Miami. He moved up more than anybody else on my pre-draft to post-draft boards. And this is right where I would take him. This is in the range. So are you in on Devon Achane here?
Totally. I think this is the right range for him. And, for all the complaints we have about the running back landing spots, like you guys were saying, I mean, Achane going to Miami was the one we were all hoping for, essentially, as they were going into day 2. They hadn't even picked yet. We were hoping that they were going to take a running back there as well. He's a great, like you said, big play threat as well as just insurance policy for a guy like Raheem Mostert. I mean, if Raheem Mostert misses any time, he fits right into that same role. And I think that Mike McDaniel was very pleased to get Achane.
Yeah, I mean, he only had 4 picks. Used one of them on Achane, so he had to have liked it. My pick here, I'm going to go with Hendon Hooker. And this is a quarterback from Tennessee going to Detroit. There's a couple reasons for this. Are there players that I like more than Hendon Hooker that can produce for me today? Yes, of course. There's a lot of wide receivers. There's running backs, even though, Spears went to Tennessee. I think he'll produce more, obviously, for us than Hendon Hooker coming off an ACL injury. Swears up and down that he's going to be ready for preseason. He ain't going to be ready. He'll be ready about midway through the season. I don't buy any of that. But this is a quarterback in a super flex draft that has the potential to start as early as next year for a very good team on offense. So Jared Goff has a lot to prove this year. So Hooker is an absolute gamble at this pick. I understand that, but there's no other QBs you want in this draft. So there's some you may take because you have to have a QB, but nobody else you want, in my opinion. So I'm going to take Hooker here, maybe a little bit sooner than he should go. Jay, what do you think about Hendon Hooker? And is this a reach, or is this right about where he needs to go?
It's a little earlier than I would have taken him, but I think that the reasoning's sound for why you did it, and again, we're going to, harp back to the same points about this being, super flex draft. And, there's been some rumors about the Lions extending Jared Goff recently since the draft ended. Not really sure about that, but I do like the Hendon Hooker pick for them, for the Lions. I think that, he could be the future plan for them at the position in an offense that just seems to be getting more loaded and loaded every draft. So yeah, I like the Hendon Hooker pick. Like I said, a little early for me, but I don't disagree with your reasoning for it.
Fitzy, am I Jack Reacher here? Am I Christina Ricci? Am I reaching a little too early for Hendon Hooker?
Look, I don't think so, Boggs. And I've got Hooker 14th overall for Superflex. And this is from someone who doesn't really believe in Hooker that much. And it's less about the age and the knee injury than just that he played in that simplified Josh Heupel offense that made things really easy and bisected the field for him. And as easy an offense for a quarterback to play in as there probably is in college football, as our guy Thor was talking about on this show. So yeah, I don't think there's a great percentage that he hits and becomes this reliable starter. But honestly, in this draft, I think the hit rate plummets after about pick 10. So if you're gonna go for, if all these guys have low hit rates, do it at the high leverage position, if he really hits, they're running backs and receivers and tight ends around this portion of rookie drafts who, maybe you get a little bit better hit rate, but if they do hit, they're not going to have the sort of impact a starting quarterback has and the value that player has in Superflex. So I'm totally on board with that sort of gamble here, even if I think it's less than a 50-50 chance Hooker pans out as an NFL starter.
We're about to get real weird in this draft. It's going to be fun to the end here. But before we move on, let me tell you guys to subscribe to the Fantasy Pros YouTube channel where you can see our smiling faces. Comment below this video, because when you do, you could win a free FREE upgrade to Fantasy Pros Premium. Whether you're looking for custom mock drafts, salary cap tools, in-depth analysis for your fantasy performance, Fantasy Pros Premium has the tools to help you win. Unlock the most powerful fantasy tools in the industry. Don't want to wait for the giveaway? Sign up today at fantasypros.com/premium and start playing smarter, not harder. Leave a comment, subscribe. If you like the content, click the bell and you're going to get updated on all of our latest podcast live streams and short videos. So please check that out. Jay, you are up for pick number 4 in the second round. Miller, Achane, Hooker off the board. Who is going to be this fourth pick?
Yeah, like you said, we're about to get a little weird here, I guess. I'm going to pick Jayden Reed as my pick here at the 204. He was somebody, who I've listened to a lot of, smarter people than myself prior to the draft who really liked him. I'll shout out, JJ Zacharyson really liked him and said that he was, scoring really well in his model. I think we were all expecting the draft capital to be more like 3rd, 4th round. He went 50th overall to the Packers. Another fun stat about the Packers, it's just a quick one, but it's kind of pointless, but it's interesting. The Packers wide receivers they've taken in the second round since 2006 have been Greg Jennings, Jordy Nelson, Randall Cobb, Devontae Adams, Christian Watson, and Jayden Reed, which doesn't really have any legs to it. There's no real correlation there. But the Packers have done pretty well drafting wide receivers in the second round. And somebody who looked good in all those analytical models before the draft and then gets the draft capital on top of it is somebody that I'm interested in. And the, wide receiver room in Green Bay is open. Outside of Christian Watson, Romeo Doubs, potentially. Jayden Reed could be playing immediately, and especially when they spent that high of a pick on him, I think they're going to want to get him on the field.
Jay, my favorite part about this pick is you did it one spot in front of the Packers fan. Fitz here. I love that you sniped him here. Fitz, was that your pick here at the 5th pick in the 2nd round? And what do you think about Jayden Reed?
He wasn't going to be my pick, but I do think it's a very intriguing pick. And I think this is maybe right around the spot in the draft where he should go in rookie drafts. This is a guy who really had some heat. Picked up a lot of momentum coming in. Yes, smart analysts like JJ Zachariason were all over Jayden Reed. And the Packers, that they spent this sort of draft capital on him, we know that they had a need at wide receiver. I mean, he basically becomes the number 3 man in the wide receiver room. That is Christian Watson, Romeo Doubs, and a bunch of UDFA practice squad guys. So Jayden Reed's immediately got an opening here, and he is an intriguing prospect. So I like the pick.
The Packers definitely drafting for that middle of the field versatility with the 2 tight ends they took, as well as Jayden Reed. So, all right, Fitz, you're up for pick 5 in the 2nd round. Who's it going to be?
205 is going to be Sam LaPorta. I don't want to let down Derek Brown and our own Thor Nystrom, who absolutely love this guy. And man, like, we heard that he might be picked higher than was commonly believed, and going early in the 2nd round to the Lions, which I think is a pretty good landing spot, even if they were maybe a little bit guilty of underutilizing another Iowa tight end, TJ Hawkinson, who they traded away. But like Sammy Ballgame, as Thor likes to call him, is he's just good, man. And Iowa's offense was just garbage last year. And LaPorta was the one guy who, his target share was around 30% in that offense. Like, he was the only thing that worked in the Iowa passing game and the entire Iowa offense, really. So I think he's going to make a quick transition to the NFL, and I'm kind of excited about him. It's interesting that I think in every rookie draft, like, where the tight ends go is going to be kind of a mystery. Like, they're going to start peeling off the board. I mean, Kincaid's going to sneak into the 1st round in a lot of drafts, certainly every 1 QB draft. But where the other guys go is going to be really interesting, because I think you can make a case for them, early in the 2nd, late in the 2nd. Some are going to fall into the 3rd. So there's going to be some variance in where the tight ends go in rookie drafts this year.
And speaking of which, I have the next pick, and I'll just tell you, I'm going to take Michael Mayer, the tight end, going to the Raiders. Actually, I have him a little bit ahead of LaPorta, just because I do think that immediately from day one, Michael Mayer drops in and is the number 1 tight end for Vegas now that Darren Waller is off to the Giants in the trade before the draft. And this is just a dependable guy. He's going to be on the field. A lot of comparisons to Witten, Dalton Schultz. I think he's in between those guys. I don't think he's as good as Witten. I don't think he's way more athletic than Dalton Schultz. So I think this is a good spot for him to land. Devontae is obviously the number 1. Josh Jacobs heavy, but you give Jimmy G, you got to give him some tight end talent. He just had George Kittle. So, give him a safety blanket over the middle. And I like Mayer. What do you think about those 2 tight end picks? And then you're up, Jay. What do you think of those? And then let us know who you want.
Yeah, I think I was, it feels like I was sniped on both of those. They were both good picks. In terms of Michael Mayer, I really think that, things have changed since the draft in terms of, he dropped a little bit further than we thought. I thought he was going to go in top 20, essentially, with the Chargers kind of being the floor there. He dropped a little bit further than we thought. At the same time, like you said, I think he landed in a spot where he is going to play immediately. Josh McDaniels is used to utilizing the tight end. I mean, Jimmy Garoppolo with those short area targets there as well should, fit with Michael Mayer, and he's an all-around tight end, so he's gonna fit there. I think that was a good pick, and that's who I would have picked at this next pick at 107. 207. I'm going to take Jonathon Mingo off the board. It feels like I'm chasing the draft capital right now with Mingo and then Jayden Reed. But at the same time, I felt like this pocket of wide receivers here, there were a lot of guys that were kind of in the same boat for me coming into the draft. Jonathon Mingo actually was not one of them, but he got picked, surprisingly high. He went, 39th overall to the Carolina Panthers. And again, a room where it's not wide open, but I mean, it's Adam Thielen, it's DJ Chark, it's Jonathon Mingo, Terrace Marshall. We'll see. I think that Jonathon Mingo is kind of a replacement for that. They haven't been, too happy with what Terrace Marshall has done. Mingo's a versatile receiver. And again, kind of going back to some people who are smarter than myself, I've seen Matt Harmon really, pumping him since he got drafted there with, actually his route tree looks a little bit better. He's got good size. He's like 6'2", 220, versatile guy. And so, hopefully he can pick up some chemistry with Bryce Young immediately. And going early second was a great spot for him. So I like him here. I'll take the risk.
Seemed like a late riser there too. That's a solid pick. Let's finish out the second round, and then we'll go back and talk about these picks. So Fitz at pick number 8 in the second. Who would you take in this spot?
I am going to go with Josh Downs here, and really close. He's close for me with Mingo. Tough call. I think Downs is maybe higher floor, lower ceiling than Mingo. Is kind of the way I feel about that one. I just feel like there's a pretty good percentage that Downs becomes just this solid slot guy. I think he's kind of a Jamison Crowder plus. So,
I like that.
And Crowder's not a guy who ever, lit it up for you in fantasy, but he was a pretty useful asset for quite a while, maybe notoriously overdrafted, but, I think Downs could be a little better, and put up a little more prolific numbers than Crowder did. But I think there's a good chance, though, that he becomes fantasy relevant. I think the chances of missing on Downs are pretty low.
Yeah, I mean, great contested catch guys. So even if he can't get open, we can go up and get it. So I love that pick. Definitely sniped me too, Fitzy. So a nice pick there. Jalin Hyatt, for me, the wide receiver out of Tennessee going to the Giants. I just think there's opportunity there. Even though he is the least experienced, I think he might be the best wide receiver in that room from day one, which puts you up, Jay, for pick number 10 in the second round.
Yeah, I'm going to take Roschon Johnson here, the running back from Texas, going to the Bears. Yeah, it feels a little early based on some of the rookie drafts that I have done so far since the draft, but it feels like an ambiguous backfield, where it's Dante Foreman, it's Khalil Herbert, it's Roschon Johnson, and they picked him in the 4th round, which isn't terrible, for a running back coming in, especially him, where I think he could have gone anywhere between, the 2nd to the 5th round. Lands in the 4th. Not too bad. I think he can find himself an immediate opportunity there, as well as a future opportunity as well, based on, Khalil Herbert and Dante Foreman's contracts. So I think that, he's a good fit there in a run-heavy offense.
Love it. Take my Texas guy right before I could. I appreciate that. Pat, pick number 11 in the second. Who's it going to be?
Well, then, Boggs, I'll upset you by taking an Oklahoma guy. Let's go with Marvin Mims. And it was interesting to see the Broncos sort of aggressively go and get him when they've already got Cortland Sutton, Jerry Jeudy, Tim Patrick coming off an injury. And but who knows if they're going to have all those guys, because we know there were rumors about the Broncos possibly looking to deal either Sutton or Jeudy. And Mims is just a playmaker. We saw it at Oklahoma, he's a big play guy. And as much as he looks blocked in this depth chart, I still like the landing spot because I like that he's going to be matched up with Sean Payton.
Yeah, I mean, I don't hate the player. Marvin Mims is great. I despise this spot because Jerry Jeudy, Cortland Sutton are both 1-2. Tim Patrick's still on the team. Sean Payton's bringing in Marquez Callaway and every other wide receiver from the Saints that he ever coached. So it's just a crowded room there. So I like Marvin Mims. I just don't like the landing spot. I'll go with Rashee Rice to close out the second round. The big wide receiver that ends up in Kansas City might push MVS to the bench or off the roster. Would not be surprised by that. But they're just looking for some magic. They're looking for a guy with size. They got all these little guys like Tony and Sky Moore to pair with Kelsey and Pacheco, the running game here. So trying to give a target size, and Mahomes will throw this dude open. So you don't have to have a lot of separation when you have Patrick Mahomes. So love the landing spot for him. We move to the third. Jay, you are up for that first pick. Who's it going to be?
I'm going to take Tank Bigsby, the running back from Auburn, going to Jacksonville. And, I'm an Eagles fan. I've seen Doug Peterson work before. I've seen he likes to, split up these backfields. And he showed us that. He told us that during the offseason, too, that they were going to add another back. They did. I think that Bigsby, got decent draft capital for a running back, going 88th off the board. And he lands in an opportunity where I think he is going to get immediate touches in a good offense. I think the Jacksonville offense is going to be much, much improved this year, even over last. So I take Tank Bigsby there at 301.
All right, 302, Fitzy. Who's it going to be?
I know this one is going to hurt you, Boggs, because I know you love this guy. I'm going to take Luke Musgrave. And, had to get a Packer since Jay took Jayden Reed off the board from me. But, a big dude who runs like a gazelle. And the Packers have a vacancy for a tight end. Now, they did double tap tight end, as we know, in the draft, also taking Tucker Kraft a little later. So, it's not guaranteed that Musgrave beats out Kraft. But he did get picked first. And, I know the love for Musgrave is not totally unanimous. Like, Derek Brown doesn't really like him that much. I think he's got, like, Brenton Strange ranked higher in his rookie rankings. Ugh. Yeah, I have debated that with Debro privately. I am high on Musgrave, and I think early third round seems about right for him.
I mean, I love Musgrave. I kind of hate the fact that he got drafted with Tucker Kraft because Tucker Kraft can't block at all, and Musgrave can. So they'll probably ask him to block more. Kind of like when Hayden Hurst was drafted ahead of Mark Andrews, and Mark Andrews was the receiving guy. I could see that panning out, but Musgrave, so much more experience than Kraft. So that's going to be a weird one for sure. Didn't love the landing spot, but I'm going to go with Tyjae Spears. Look, I love the talent. We heard Matt Waldman on this podcast compare him to Jamal Charles. I don't think he's that good, but I think he's very good. I think he could be the lead back. Derrick Henry is a little bit older. The reason that he fell to the third round, though, is because that Derrick Henry is a freak of nature, and he may stay in the NFL for 3 or 4 more solid years of 300 touches because he's just a different animal than anybody else in the league. He is such a beast. Going to be sad when Derrick Henry is no longer running in the NFL. He's so much fun to watch, but the entire offense is built around him, so there's not a lot of wiggle room for anybody else. So you take Spears and you kind of wait in a dynasty draft.
And the knee thing, Boggs. I mean, like the concerns that he could have like a Jay Ajayi type career where he's good, but maybe he's not around very long because of that. And it kind of sucks that if he is going to have a shorter career, that he's going to spend the first year of it backing up Derrick Henry.
Yeah, I mean, at least maybe it'll give him some more time to recover. So we'll see what happens there. But yeah, Tyjae, one of my favorites going in, falls to the third. Kind of sad to see, but excited to get him in the third. So Jay, pick number 4 in the third round. Who's it going to be here?
I'm going to take Cedric Tillman, who I liked coming in. I think he was an interesting prospect. He lands in Cleveland, which I think was a pretty good landing spot for him. Deshaun Watson, I think, will bounce back a little bit more, shake off some of the rust from last year. And it seems like a more crowded wide receiver room than I think it actually will be in the future. They have Amari Cooper, Donovan Peoples-Jones, Elijah Moore. Donovan Peoples-Jones is a free agent next offseason, so in 2024. I think Cedric Tillman, he's 6'3", big receiver, kind of can play that same role as Peoples-Jones. And I like him there. I like the talent, and I think that, in the long term, it'll fit a little bit better than maybe the immediate 2023 season. So I like getting him there as well.
Fitzy, pick number 5. Who's it going to be?
Chase Brown, Bengals. Like the landing spot. Pleasantly surprised by how fast he ran at the combine. After a not great Senior Bowl, I realized that. But, man, this dude was so productive at Illinois, and he handled a big load. He averaged like 27 carries for the Fighting Illini last fall. And if, as rumored, the Bengals do release Joe Mixon after June 1st, all of a sudden, Chase Brown is in line for potentially a really big role as a rookie and, like a fantasy impactful role.
I mean, anyone who can carry the load for Brett Bielema can carry the load, and that is Chase Brown. He's undersized, but a workhorse of a player. A couple fumble issues, but a lot of fun to watch. So interesting pick for Cincinnati there. For me here, I'm going to take Tucker Kraft. I'm going to go back to tight end. I love the landing spot of a lot of these guys as well. So Tucker Kraft landing in Green Bay. Not my favorite landing spot because Musgrave is there, but like I said before about Musgrave, and I still do have Musgrave ahead of Kraft, just to be completely clear here. But I could easily see Kraft not even playing tight end and playing big slot wide receiver and not really blocking inline at all, but being a potential target hog. And he's another big target like Musgrave around the red zone. So I think he could be pretty solid from the jump in Green Bay if given the opportunity. So I'll reach back to tight end. Jay, you're at pick number 7 in the third.
Yeah, I'm going to take, it might be a little early, but I'm going to take Nathaniel Dell, the wide receiver going to Houston. And he went a little earlier in the NFL draft, I thought, than we kind of expected as well. He went 69th overall. And, a little bit of narrative there, too, since the draft has ended. He's been saying him and CJ Stroud had some chemistry. CJ Stroud has, allegedly went and, preached that they should pick Tank Dell as well. And I think, it's kind of a theme of my draft here, too. I mean, I'm picking a lot of these guys that, I think could have some immediate opportunity in some of these wide receiver rooms that aren't solidified. And Houston feels like that as well. It's Nico Collins, Noah Brown, it's Robert Woods. And I think Tank Dell might be able to fit in there right away as a big play threat. The size is a little concerning. He'll have to be an outlier in that sense. But I think they invested in him highly, and I think he's got an immediate opportunity.
Good pick there. It makes the end interesting here because that's to me, it's one of the last of the really good picks. So who do you got, Fitz? Who is at pick number 8 in the
Evan
third?
Hull, Northwestern running back. We just know he's probably going to step in right away and be a passing down back in the NFL. Fits that role well. I mean, Jonathan Taylor's going to handle the early down work on obvious passing downs, bring in the guy who led FBS in running back receptions last year. Max effort player, faster than maybe we thought he was going to be at the combine. A lot to like here, even if the role might be kind of limited.
All right, let's get weird. Pick number 9. I'm going to take Stetson Bennett. I'm not a Stetson Bennett fan, but he ends up in L.A. There's no other QB except Matt Stafford on the roster, who missed most of last year, is, riding off into the sunset in his NFL career as well. His team has salary cap issues. They can't afford to go pick up many other QB options. So Stetson might be the immediate backup. We saw Baker Mayfield come into LA and win a game with 3 days of knowledge. So give him a whole offseason. I think he could be all right. And this is still a super flex mock. So if you're desperate, that would probably be the next man up after the big 5 for me. So pick number 10 here, Jay. Your last one in this draft. Who's it going to be?
I'm going to go with Tyler Scott, the wide receiver from Cincinnati, going to Chicago. I think that he'll have some opportunity there. He's somebody who I think actually kind of fell throughout the actual NFL draft based on where we thought he was going to go pre-draft. Some people, some draft analysts, Dane Brugler had a second round grade on him, thought he was a really exciting player. He's been compared to, Tyler Lockett by more than one person that I've listened to. And I think that, there's a fit in Chicago for a guy like him. Darnell Mooney, I don't know if he'll be there long-term. He'll have to get an extension to stay there too much longer. And I think he's a good fit. So I like Tyler Scott here at the end of the third.
I wish we had more time to talk because I cannot believe that his teammate Trey Tucker went ahead of him. I thought that was crazy. Yeah, no. And that is classic Raiders, but we don't even have time to talk on it. So, Fitzy, your last pick in this draft.
I'm going to stay with wide receiver, go with Kayshon Boutte. And, hit rates are low in the third round of rookie drafts, the late third, and Boutte might not do anything. But, man, if this guy can tap into what he showed when he broke out as a freshman at LSU in 2020 and started really well as a sophomore, going against SEC competition, this guy, I think could be Jarvis Landry in his impact. And I kind of like that he went to the Patriots. Maybe Bill Belichick can get him to fall in the line. And if he does, he could be a pleasant surprise. Although I realize the percentage chances of him hitting might not be great, but if he does hit, I think he could hit in a big way.
I'm right there with you, and I was pretty upset when you just took him in the league that we're in, 3 or 4 spots ahead of me in our initial rookie draft here, Fitz. So, needed to give you crap for that one. So thanks for bringing that up again, death by 1,000 cuts here. The last pick in this draft for me, I'm going to go with Zach Evans, running back, got drafted to the LA Rams. Cam Akers, I do think is the better back, but, They have nothing behind him. Kyron Williams is a receiving back. He should probably only be a receiving back, a third down guy. And, Akers was weird, left the team, came back. Seems like they worked it out. But I think he's not that far behind Akers in terms of talent. I think he's going to be a better pro than he was a college player, getting kicked around at TCU and Ole Miss. So I am excited to see what he has in LA. I can't believe it took 2 Rams, by the way, to end this draft. But that will wrap it up for us today on the Fantasy Pros Dynasty Fantasy Football Pod. Thank you to Jay for coming and hanging out. Jay, please tell everyone where they can find all your work and what you're doing and what you got coming up.
Yeah, you can find me on Twitter at JARSHT, and my podcast at High Floor Football at High Floor FB with my buddy Sam Wagman. So we're recording every Tuesday night, and they're out by Wednesday typically. So that's what I'm up to. So thanks for having me on, guys. I really appreciate it.
You got it. Fitzy at Fitz_FF. What is going on for you? Just a lot of grinding,
yes,
right?
Yes, sir. Getting ready for our Dynasty kit and our redraft kit. So, just a lot of work. And great to have Jay on. It was good to talk to him again. I've been on with him and Sam. Great show. Check it out.
Awesome time. And thank you guys for joining us. You can follow me at Bogman Sports. Catch me here and in this league. Obviously, just check out my Twitter. You can see all my work. But that is it for a 3-round Superflex rookie draft. We hope you guys enjoyed it. We will see you guys next week. Take it easy, everybody.